the Monster Squad did not get the greatest opening at the box office, but over the last 25 years, it's gone on to develop an amazing cult following. My children love the movie. I asked them the Ghostbusters versus Monster Squad, question, and the Monster Squad is always the right answer. I'm Matt Winston, by the way. My father's Stan Winston. If Dad was still with us, he would not have missed this reunion for the world. And I would like to just get started by handing the microphone over. Let's pass it along. Introduce yourself and a brief statement of what you did on the film, and then we will come back to you and we'll get some stories. So why don't we start with you, Lenny? Who are you?
I'm Lenny McDonald, and I got the opportunity to work on Monster Squad. I believe Steve Wang there suggested we were both working at Rick Baker's at the time, and he said there's going to be a cool project called Monster Squad, and went over there and I got to work on, I think, every character. I did like the creature from the Black Lagoon's eyes, and worked on a little bit of werewolf, worked on Frankenstein, did some free painting for that, and just about everything. Got to do a little puppeteering too, so that was great. So, there you go.
There's Michael McKay.
The Mummies are coming. The Mummies.
My name is Alec Gillis. I worked for Stan Winston at that time, and I was in charge of the Dracula stuff, Dracula transformation, and Duncan Regere's makeup, and puppet bats and flying bats and stuff like that.
Hi, my name's Shane Mahan, and I worked for Stan on that project, as you know, and I turned Michael into the mummy. He's wearing a vintage. That's the crew jacket, vintage. That's probably the only one that exists.
I have mine. Are you kidding? I have mine. Oh, yeah.
I'm Tom Woodard Jr. I played the Gill Man in probably one of the coolest Oscar-suit that I think I've worn. And I was also in charge of doing the Frankenstein makeup that we pasted on this gentleman's face every morning at 5 o'clock.
Tom, have you grown a beard just for this event so he won't try that on you today?
No, why are you giving away my shit, man?
I'm sorry.
Oops. Just like your father,
I don't know how to take that. Is that a compliment?
Your father would have known.
So let's go to you, Shannon Shea.
Wow, how do you follow that? I'm Shannon Shea. I worked with John Rosengrant, actually under John Rosengrant, as one of the Wolfman artists, and I was semi-instrumental in the transformation effects as well as when the Wolfman explodes.
Actors. Duncan Regere. I'm sorry. Mary. Welcome, Mary. Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen Trainor's mom. Let's pay more attention to monsters. Mary Ellen, hello. Welcome. And Duncan, welcome. It's great to see you. And welcome. Stephen, welcome. And the dad. I'm nobody. So you guys are all, so let's move on down. Steve, did you say hello?
I'm Steve Wang, and I also work for Stan Winston. And I was in charge of building the Gill Man with Matt Rose here. And so,
Hi, I'm Matt Rose. I helped this guy.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Trainor, the mom. I help this guy out.
I'm here to work here, and I'm happy to help everybody if I can.
Duncan played Count Dracula. As well. That's how it was. Stephen Mack and I played Del.
Hi, I'm Michael Indicate. I played the monkey.
Ashley Bank, and I played Phoebe.
I'm Tom.
Fred Decker, I co-wrote the screenplay with Shane Black and directed the movie.
Welcome to all of you. Again, this movie has stood the test of time. What an amazing opportunity for all of you, I'm sure, to revisit the famous Universal monsters. I know for Stan it was a dream come true to get a chance to put his spin on those characters. And without further ado, I think we should just jump in and talk about your memories of the film. We'll start with you, Fred. The conception. We have a lot of people here, so if you could sort of tell us your most memorable moments on that movie, and maybe even since making the movie, since it's transformed into this, such a cult favorite. We'll start with you, Fred Decker. Talk to us about the beginning, the Monster Squad beginning.
Well, I always loved the Little Rascals, or as they were known when they were made, the Our Gang series by Hal Roach in the 30s and 40s. Well, the ones in the 40s aren't as good as the ones in the 30s. And I also was obsessed with the Universal Monster pictures, which I watched at 3 o'clock in the morning when I should have been getting some sleep to go to school. And I was finishing my directorial debut.
Night of the Creeps.
Night of the And I was in the middle of that, and Shane Black was one of my best friends from college, and it had not occurred to him that he could write, that he could be a writer. So I said, you don't have to, it's not like a novel, you can just do slug lines and a couple of lines, and it's much easier. So I basically gave him his first job as a screenwriter, which is I said, what if we took the Little Rascals and updated them and had them meet the actual Universal monsters? And he said, great. And that's what we did.
It's that easy, folks. Any memories of the shooting of the film that stand out to you as being worthy of retelling?
Oh my God! I mean, a movie is a war, as you know. So it's like, when you wage that war for 2 years, what do you remember? I remember all of it, and some of it was tough. I was very young. Most of it was pretty fantastic because of all these people, frankly. And but I do want to tell one quick story, which is my favorite Stan Winston story. It was about 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. We were in the back lot at Warner Brothers, and we had to do essentially an insert. We had the entire crew. An insert, guys, is a shot you can get any time on a stage. It's cheap, it's easy, you don't need much of a crew. But we needed it that night for whatever reason. And next time you see the movie, it's about 12 frames. It's when Tom, the Frankenstein monster, hurls Count Dracula, Duncan, onto the cross in front of the church in the town square at the end of the movie. We needed a tiny insert just to sell the fact that Duncan was actually landing on this thing. So he was in his trailer wrapped for the night. Tom was wrapped. It was just basically Bradford May, the DP, and me and Stan with a dummy of Duncan trying to get a close-up of it kind of landing on this thing. And we just rolled. You don't say, you don't do the slate and all that. Okay, action, try it, and then cut. You just, let's keep doing it. And that's such a fond memory for me because your dad and I were like 2 little kids making our Super 8 movie in the backyard with a dummy of Dracula trying to get it onto that. And that was great.
That's a nice story. Dad never grew up. He never grew up until the day he died. He never grew up. So, Tom, you have any memories of being the Frankenstein monster that you'd like to share with us?
There's a scene at the end where I'm sucked into the vortex, and so they put me on the skateboard so they can drag me backwards toward the vortex. And so I crawl to Phoebe, and they say, well, when you're doing this, there's going to be some stuff flying. Don't worry, it's just like styrofoam. So they say action, and they turn on the biggest fucking fan. It was like from like a B-29, like a huge fan. And these guys are shoveling rocks and bricks. And I was trying to crawl toward her, and I'm getting hit in the face with like all these terribly painful things. That's one of my fondest memories.
I hate to hear your nightmares.
And then every time we did it again, they said, no, we're not going to do that again. And then they would do it again. But I'm an actor.
Ashley, talk about your time on the film.
I was young, but it was like summer camp. It was like which I think all film sets in some way are sort of like summer camp. You become really bonded with the crew and the cast, and you become like a little family for however long you're working on the film. But when you're young, it really intensifies. While all that was happening, I was actually behind a bench that got pulled away too far, and those huge fans are going, and I'm holding on to the grass, because at the time I probably weighed like 40 pounds. And so I was in danger of actually being blown away with the rocks and the bricks. But that's the fun and the magic of movie making.
How was it for you to be around these monsters at that age?
Scary.
Any particularly scary monster for you?
That one. He looks around, he knows it's him. Duncan and Fred played a little trick on me that I'm sure everyone's heard 1,000 times, but I'll retell it. Where I'm getting lifted up and he's holding me by the chin, and I was terrified of the red eye contacts and those fangs because they're scary when you're 5. And so whenever we were in a scene together, he always didn't wear them when I was on set as a courtesy to me. And so when we're getting ready to do that scene, Fred pulls me over and he goes, okay, so you're going to have to scream in this scene. And I'm like, okay, when? And he goes, you'll know. As an adult, I might be like, what do you mean? But as a kid, I was like, okay. And so they lift me up on the thing, and he opens his eyes and opens his mouth and hisses at me. And that scream is 100% That is not acting.
Flying bricks, terrified little girls. Love this movie. Yes, Tom, you've raised your hand very politely.
One day we're about to shoot this close-up of me, and I'm a serious actor. And they're about to roll. She comes over to me, and she says, my name's on the poster. Is your name on the poster? And I said, leave me alone. She said, why should I leave you alone? Who's your agent? Then who's my... She kept needling me about her billing being better than mine. So all this cutesy shit.
You just called your performance cutesy shit. All right, Michael, my recollection of you, the most impossibly thin, realistic mummy ever created. Let's talk about your experience on the movie.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. A friend of mine saw a thing in Variety, and it said, Mikey, you should go out for this. I said, what? And it said, looking for an extremely thin actor on the verge of anorexic. And I've always been like super skinny, and so I said, go for it. So I did, and it was like, I went directly to the studios, and I auditioned for Fred, and he said, walk across the room a couple times, and he kind of directed me on how they wanted me to walk, so I did kind of like a thing with my all distorted hands and whatnot. And he said, and he was talking with someone, and they were in this heated conversation, and then he looks to me and he says, as far as I'm concerned, you got the part. And then it continues on to the conversation. And so the next day I go to work,
And I get this call. It's like, this woman calls, and she said, Michael, Eddie? I said, yeah. She said, I understand that you're going to be playing the Mummy in the Monster Squad. It's like, what? And it's kind of like, and then I started like, I'm not even saying it. And she said, no, honey, don't worry about it. We'll take care of everything. She says, but you're cast as the Mummy in the Monster Squad. And I hung the phone up, and I was kind of like, a friend of mine was sitting there, and I was kind of like, he said, what's wrong? I was like, I just got cast in a movie as the Mummy in the Monster Squad. And he was like, and it was like, I was like, really, and that started a whole thing for me. And as and as we're playing the Mummy, I just really fell in love with my character. And everyone was like super nice and protective. And my little Michael Faustino, for some reason, he's just like, he was like very protective of me. He always held my hand when we ate. He'd always like take a napkin and say, "You okay?" And he'd like wipe my mouth and everything. And he was like always looking at me like, "Are you okay? You want some more food?" And it's like and he'd always hold my hand. It was like really cute. But two really quick things is like when I did the thing on the back of the truck and we're going down the road and everything. It's like all the kids in the back were like extras and they were doubles. And they were like holding my hand and I was on a brace and it was like everything was like safe and it was really cool going down the road really fast and everything. And they were like all holding my hands and they were like really, holding me and they said, we got you, you're safe and everything. And it was like really totally cool. It was a lot of fun. But the funniest incident was one night after shooting, it was pouring rain. It started sprinkling and it started pouring rain. And I started walking, and it's like all of a sudden I got like confused or something. I ended up walking in the woods in circles in mud. And it's kind of like I'm walking around, and it's like, I lost my trailer, I can't find anything. And I was looking around, and some guy went by in a truck, and he said, "We found the Mummy!" And I was in the middle of the woods or something, like in mud and everything, and my trailer was like right over there. And I swore my trailer was moved. He said, and they captured me and they took me, and I was safe and I was rescued. And that
Hey, Dad. How would you like being the dad in the Monster Squad?
So, it's not so much of what I remember about the movie as I want to make a comment about now. What the movie is for me now, and as I look at you all out here. I was at one other convention, and somebody raised their hand and said, "When are you going to make the next Monster Squad movie?" So I said this, about 15 minutes ago, a father and his little son appeared for my signature. And his little son was wearing the Jason mask. The kid was 5 years old. So I said to him, they're never going to make this movie again. Because this movie represented an idyllic time. When the children had dreams of fighting the bad guys and defeating them. Nowadays, the children are the bad guys. And that's my memory of it. It will live forever as an idyllic dream world in which the children really did have great impulses and transcended the shit that's in their lives. I'm afraid of what's about to come now.
There is hope. We have Monsterpalooza. There is hope. Duncan, it's your turn, but before you speak, I'd like to point out that Duncan was a dear, dear close friend of my father, and he was a great admirer of you as an actor, but especially as a painter, and my parents' house is filled with your work. So he's a genius as a painter as well, and you should know his work. Duncan, what was it like to be Count Dracula, the leader of the bad guys?
I think the scariest moment for me was actually the same moment that was the scariest for Ashley. Because, yes, I hissed at her, and I did open my eyes, but when she screamed, I think I'm actually a little bit deaf still. And it and there's a brief pause before that line came out. I don't know if anybody remembers it. Maybe 1, 2, 3. The ambulance shoots it. So I was actually scared in that moment myself. So. But again, like Stephen was saying, I think what stays with me from that time is that this film has been a generational film. It's really such a great pleasure to see everybody here, but also that the film has stood the test of time, from grandparents to parents to grandchildren, and that attests to just how wonderful it is, a wonderful, wonderful film. And of course, one of my fondest memories of the film is my dear friendship with Stan that came out of it. And we did have a special relationship with regards to art. And he would always say, well, you paint and you do all these wonderful things. He said, I just make these monsters. And I said, man, you're a sculptor. These things are brilliant. And, he would work, in conjunction with a lot of these other guys, and they'd come up with amazing stuff. And I'm still blown away by it. And all of that feeds into a wonderful memory for me.
Mary Ellen, do you have any specific wonderful memories of this project that you would like to share?
Yes. First of all, I have to say, we're even, because I didn't know you were Stan's son. And in the
that excuses for me being an
everything. A big asshole.
Awesome. I used my
It's always better to be a big asshole as opposed to an asshole. He was a wonderful man. I went on, now that I'm 60 years old, to make many movies where he walked into the makeup trailer. And he was lovely on every level. And you're very lucky to have had him as a dad. And I don't know who the next Stan Winston is. I don't think any of us do. But that's not my world. My world is I've been playing a mom now for as long as I can remember. I started in 1985 really with Goonies. And little did we know what that would become and how fun being a mom was. Then when a few others were in between and Monster Squad came along, I still had it in me to think, that is one cute, nice filmmaker. And I'm going to get this part, and I did. But I did it all the right way.
What did you have to do?
I did it all the right way. And
what are all the right ways?
Stay away. And it was just one of those really delightful, wonderful times. And I got to play the wife to Stephen. And we did have a scene where Fred wanted us to have a raging argument in the dining room. Well, women here in this room, we know how well we can rage. And I did. And he kept yelling, louder, more, louder, more. At that point, the hair was flying and the hands were going, and you didn't get to see any of that because it was actually shot through louvers on the window. But it was a great moment. It was a lot of fun. I agree with Stephen. I wish we could almost go on and do part 2 and maybe reintroduce young people to just the simplicity of right and wrong, sometimes good and evil, and sometimes being scared is okay because someone's going to help you out. So thank you all for being here. I have had a wonderful time. I'm now playing grandmothers, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Matt Rose, brilliant, brilliant sculptor. The Gill Man. Let's talk about the Gill Man.
Well, the strongest memory I have is Tom dressed as a Gill Man fighting all these stuntmen dressed as sheriff's deputies. And they were overly enthusiastic. And they had these billy clubs that were supposed to be soft, but they were hard inside. And they were wailing on him in order to be
orchestrated this whole flight. It was really well done, but they were just hitting me so hard. They'd stop and Tom would just say through the Gilman's mouth, I got it, you're going to take it easy a little bit. They were wailing. And I just said, geez, it's being really good. And then they started it up again. It was like 4 or 5 guys, I can't remember now. But boom, boom, from every side. And then one of the bigger guys was in the wrong place at the wrong time, because he just started wailing again. And Tom wasn't looking, and he spun his hand around and clocked the guy straight in the forehead. This big guy fell like a sack of potatoes, straight down on his ass. And he just looked dazed, and he was not that far from me. And he just looked really strange. And they had those hats on with the little shields right here in the middle of the hat. And someone apparently they riveted those shields on the hat. When they pulled the hat off, 2 streams, perfect streams of blood, shot 6 feet right by my shoes. I almost fainted. And now we've killed a lot of people in movies. I've killed over 40 horribly. I can't stand the sight of real blood. And I still have my legs giving way. So anyway, I think I heard Tom going, that was the strongest.
That's awesome, Matt. I'm sensing a little... I'm sensing a theme here. We've got Tom being pelted with bricks. We've got Ashley being terrified. We've got the lost mummy. We've got Mary Ellen being told, more, and we've got people... This is the most violent set in Hollywood history. And it all comes from the top on a set. So, Fred, you're a sadistic man.
It's a monster movie now.
All right, Steve. Let's talk about your contribution and what it meant to you to be a part of the team that got to recreate the Universal monsters.
Well, I mean, when I was working for Stan, brought in to work on the Gilman, it was, for me, a dream come true because the original creature from the Black Lagoon was my favorite monster of all time. So having the opportunity to do that, was amazing, especially when Matt and I were just 20 years old, and we had only been in business for a year at the time. And so that was wonderful. And I saw a lot of really funny things on set, but a lot of it I can't really share.
Share.
I don't know about that.
It was the 80s. Cocaine, fun.
I wish it was just run stories. I could share that. I will just say a little bit about the building process of the Gilman. When Matt and I were making the suit, we had done a lot of things we had tried before, and we would test them on different levels, like the glues that we used for the suit and, all the stuff. But it wasn't until the day that he actually worked, that Tom actually worked for the first time as a Gilman, that we actually put the whole thing together for the first time. So we didn't know if it was going to work or not. All this like, we're going to make the seam go away. And then, so we started pulling little pieces, and I remember as the feet went on, and the seam kind of went away, and I was doing the man like, it's working. Hands on, and it's like, Stan was in the room the whole time. We're like really nervous when we get fired. I'm like, it's working. And then finally we put the head on, and we made the seam go away, and I was like, oh my God, it's working. And we went on set. Stan got a lot of compliments, it's a lot of nice things about it. Afterwards, we came back, and Tom did a great job too, as a Gilman. Afterwards, we came back. I think I had to change my pants because I thought for sure we would get fired.
Well, Dad had a strict no pants changing rule for new hires for the first year, and all right.
It's not good to be sat around me for a while.
Shannon Shea. Let's talk about it. I know you are a monster nut. This must have been a dream come true.
Yeah, it was. I remember Stan telling us about Monster Squad when we were working on Amazing Stories, Miss Stardust. He said, hey, our next project's going to be Universal Monsters, and we were at Universal Studios. But
They posted on the movie, by the way.
yeah,
They passed on the movie.
which it seems
We submitted the script just to Universal because I wanted to use the Jaggers makeups. And they said, these characters mean nothing to us. There's no longevity in them.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine that? It's crazy. But the person that's missing of it here is John Rosenbrand, who really was responsible for the Wolfman. And I remember Stan designed the Wolfman based on photos of himself. Like he literally photographed his face and snarling and stuff. He did all the drawings based on his own face. And I really don't want to speak for John, but I'll just tell you a story about because John actually asked me to be part of his Wolfman team. I was very pleased to do. And John said to me at one point, he goes, hey, listen, there's a scene where the Wolfman blows up, and he all comes back together again. And so he said, so we have parts that come back. So I went to the mechanics, Dave Nelson and Steve James, and I said, we got to do this scene where I need a mechanical hand that gets, goes back to be reintegrated. And one of the mechanics said, wow, wouldn't it be great if we just put it on an RC car? And I was like, hey, that'd be cool. So the mechanics built this arm, this destroyed arm that was on an RC car, and the hand, the fingers moved, and the palm moved, and we were driving out on the parking lot, and jumping speed bumps and stuff with it, and I was like, look how cool this is! So, I don't know, I was young, I was about 23, I think, at the time. So we get to set, and we go, okay, we're going to shoot the scene where the Wolfman's parts reintegrate. And I bring out this arm, and I'm puppeteering it, and I drive it around the corner, and Stan walks up to me and he goes, what was that? And I said, it's the arm, isn't it cool? He goes, why isn't that just a rubber arm that we're dragging on a wire? How much did I pay for this? It's cool! Oh boy, what a lesson, And next time I'll just drag a piece of rubber across the ground. Whatever. So, anyway, that's my memory. It's this shocking stand with a secret project. So,
Thank you, Shannon. Before we get to Tom, I want to give you guys a heads up on time. We have room for another 10? 10?
Yes.
So let's each of you share a memory, and then we have 5 minutes for you guys to ask some questions. And I'm so sorry we don't have more time. There are just too many of you, and too much to talk about. So, Tom Woodruff, let's talk about your very first performance in a monster suit that went to lead to an amazing career as a creature performer as well as an effects creator.
Matt took my story.
All right, awesome. Shane Mayhem. I'll take it. We have time.
No, I'll get it. Real quick. I have a new favorite story. What Stephen Mock just said earlier was really an eye-opening thing to notice, right? It's something that I think is plaguing all of us as monster makers and the projects that we're facing and the projects we're trying to do and just the direction that everything is going. Or maybe I'm just getting older. But anyway, my favorite memory of the actual making of the movie was, of course, wearing the creature suit. It was the first monster suit I was in. It was, again, my favorite monster ever since I was a kid. But there was also a moment in designing and building Tom Noonan's Frankenstein makeup when I was working late in the shop one night. And we just having trouble getting it and doing sculptures and stuff. And Stan came through the shop, and he just said, see how things were going. And I said, I'm having trouble doing this. And he said, well, do you want some help? And I said, yeah. You want to? I said I didn't think you'd be too busy to help stuff. So my favorite memory is sitting in that shop at night, just me and Stan Winston. Because I'm a kid, I'm 26-year-old. I'm sitting there with Stan Winston sculpting a monster makeup for the Frankenstein monster for a movie about monsters. So honestly, my professional memories have never gotten any better than that moment.
That was my story. My favorite thing was moving Michael McKay's dressing room on a rainy night. Watching him, this poor little mummy, wander around in the mud with one green eye. Good God, that was fun. But actually, the mummy was mine because I loved the Karloff mummy, like all the guys. We gravitated to what we wanted to do, kind of based on personal interest. That's how it works. You kind of get, mummy, the mummy, creature, and Frankenstein monster. And the one issue I had this thing with Stan once where he didn't like my design for the mummy, and he was kind of art directing me, and he said, "It just doesn't look like a mummy. It looks like an ancient dead guy." And I was looking at him going, "Yeah, okay." Tom will be here late tonight painting appliances. Anyway, it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, so like Shane was saying, we get this script, which, by the way, we were just completely knocked out. We were doing movies like Aliens and all these like drippy horror, and we get this script that's like Monsterpalooza. Oh my God, it's genius, and it was so written, so funny, not only in the dialogue, but in the descriptive passages. It was so witty, and so we were just over the moon about it. So we're all looking at, what are the monsters in this? Frankenstein, the Wolf Man, the Mummy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and it's like musical chairs, right? We're like, what am I going to get? And Stan says, you get to do Dracula. And I'm going, fangs? Then of course I started looking at it further, and I'm like, well, there's bats, flying bats. Like, and I'm thinking of the Three Stooges, the flying bats, which we did a variation of that. But then there was also the transformation stuff, and that was the stuff on Duncan that I got to design, and it was my fondest memories was in the trailer with you and Stan, because you guys were already comrades, and you were such a great subject. You were so patient with it all. And I think that's the only time that I got to shoulder to shoulder do an application with Stan. I can't remember any other time that I was actually sticking something on an actor. And the patience factor came in. It wasn't just the 2.5, 3-hour facial makeup and fingers with webbed, all that. It was then we had to put you into the set on a slant board and bring this articulated rod puppeted body up, blend that on, apply hair. I feel like it was like a 6-hour setup, the whole thing. And then we shot it. So, and Duncan had to be like, really high energy and just come through the window, So it was a fantastic experience, as Tom said. We were all kids then in our 20s, so to have that experience is wonderful. And furthermore, to say more great things about Fred's skill, to me, when I look at like the Pixar movies or like these movies like Monsters versus Aliens and things like that, Monster Squad is the film that, in my opinion, spawned that whole thing. If this film was to be done now, I think it would be a CGI movie. I think it would be, because that's the last place where all this sort of innocence and this sort of fun and positive, kids versus evil stuff is still happening. But anyway, it was ahead of its time. It was a throwback and yet ahead of its time, and we all thank you for the opportunity to work on it.
One of the fun memories I had was working with Alec, and I believe you started, there's a scene where Duncan, for a split second, turns into a skull. He's on the top of the cliff. And I'm not sure if Stan started it or you started it, but Stan worked on it, and then I believe you worked on it, and then I finished it up. And it was like, wow, 3 people are working on something that's going to last on film for 1 second on film. But it was very exciting because pleasure working on anything that Stan had touched was great. Another memory is working with Tom, and we're doing the makeup, both Toms, of course, Frankenstein makeup. Tom had sculpted them, and he was doing some painting, and he needed a little help, so I kind of helped him out with that, and we got to apply the makeup. The famous Dick Smith. This is one of the members. I don't know if Tom knows this, but if anybody has met Dick Smith, he's obviously the godfather of makeup, and
you must applaud when that name is mentioned. Thank you.
Now, Dick has a certain way of talking, which is very endearing to everybody here, of course. But Tom did the best imitation of him. And it wasn't what he was saying, but he was saying just gibberish kind of stuff. But it's one of the funniest memories I have of my life.
Tom, what did it take to stay? Tom Noonan.
No, Tom was doing it.
Who does the next minute?
But speaking of comedy, his dad was one of the funniest guys, and he would do something when you, I don't know if he did it to everybody, but he did it to me. When you start off working in a shop, you might have like a lunch where everybody's invited, you might have like Chinese food or something like that. And sometimes people are warned what's going to happen, but you'll be eating, and he'll just come by and start picking up the food off your plate and just start eating, with noodles and things like that. And it's just to see how
you to see what you will do. If you will say that's rude or good job.
That's right. And if you pass that test, he will flick you in the privates.
Yeah, you'll see.
I'm not kidding. That was, you knew you made it when you were flicked in the privates. Yes, Tom?
Not to totally debunk all this wonderful memories of the sky. At the end of the film, they ran out of appliances on the last day, and they said, Tom, we have no appliances. We can't even make them because they take a week to cure. So they said, we need you to go home with the makeup on and come back the next day. And I said, So I wear the makeup for like 20 hours. I go to sleep, come back, have it on again the whole day. At the end of the day, the very last day of the shoot, they put me in the makeup chair and they start taking the appliances off. And I don't know who did it, but their faces were like horrified. And they stepped out of the way and I had these huge blisters that were hanging down off my face, all over my face, because the makeup had slowly pulled the skin off my face. So Stan comes in and they're like, Stan, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And he comes over and he goes, it's just the upper layer of skin. And he starts throwing it on the floor. That's Stan Winston.
Maybe you're just a pussy. All right, I know that we have to get out of here, but we have many of us, and we will fight the incoming people. We need 3 minutes for some Q&A. Is that cool? Okay, please shout loudly your questions.
My question's for the dad. I always wonder this every time I watch it when you guys, you and Sean are on the roof, and you guys are watching the movie, and he says, this is my favorite part. It's supposed to be like he's been watching it the whole night, multiple times. Is that what it's supposed to be, or... I always wondered that.
He's too old, I forgot what happened.
Next question. Okay, yes, in the back there.
It's actually really similar to yours. I think a lot of us will agree the triumph of this film is that we care about the kids as much as we care about the monsters, which is almost a rare thing. And I guess it goes to Fred Decker, who co-wrote the film, directed the film. That scene is marvelous and rings so true. Again, the rooftop scene where the father joins his son to watch the film. How much of that came from your real, did you do that with your parents? How much of that came, because that scene is marvelous.
My dad, God rest his soul, took me to the drive-in all the time, and I would be in my jammies in the back of the station wagon watching the Sand Pebbles or Where Eagles Dare, and those remain some of my favorite movies of all time. So that was kind of a riff on that.
Well, it's just,
Yes, all the way back.
Crenshaw provides the werewolf attack in the at the end. Does that mean you can have a werewolf
One thing to say about that, I brought my 4-year-old son to see that scene where I get the shit knocked out of me. And I finally end up sticking a piece of dynamite in Werewolf's trousers and say, suck on this, you son of a bitch, and throw him out of the window. And then he came and saw Wolfman come back together again. And as that was happening, he was 4 years old, he looked at me and said, Daddy, how'd they do that?
Yes, right in front row.
I was just wondering if there was ever any concern about calling a cute little girl bitch.
I'm not touching that.
Oh, I think it's great.
1987, baby. All right, yes. I see a young woman, yes, go ahead.
Mary Ellen, Goonies or Monster Squad? Which was your favorite to make?
Careful.
And which would you prefer to make a sequel to? Such a good question.
Such a good question. Impossible to answer.
I'd ask.
Impossible to answer. I think that, again, the joy was working with little ones, truly little ones, who've now grown up to be Josh Brolin, who comes for a glass of wine to my house. So it was, again, the innocence of the kids, and that is what prevails in both movies, and succeeding against the monsters, be that they be human or they be mummies. And again, maybe it's just a platform here to rethink all of that, since writing a screenplay is really just scribbling out a little line here or there. I wish you all the best with that. Thank you.
Let's take two more, and we are out. Yes. Ladies first. Rabbit, what's up?
What's your favorite movie director? Your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is Jaws.
Check out Greg Nicosaro's display in the museum. It's amazing. My daughter said, "How are they standing so still?" They're not real. Last question, guys. Make it a good one. Yes.
I've been fishing for 10 years, and I just being in creative film, and that's how you guys think. It's films like this that still give me hope to stay in this industry. From film to film to film to say, there can be great films, there's lots of them that have made. These type of films, the AI guy will fight to try to improve it. These are most of us good at the excellent being, what's trying to be. I know I'm here to tell you guys about this moment, so.
And on that note, would you all please take a bow, get up and take a bow.